Hello, driver education students. I hope you are ready for today's lecture. Today, we are taking a look at the Rules of the Road book for Illinois, Chapter 5, which is sharing the road. I got to be honest with you guys, I am a little tired tonight. Been working on not a whole lot of sleep the last few days, but that's okay. I've got my favorite instant espresso Cafe Bustelo in the cup here, and we're going to survive this on caffeine and energy. So let's do this. All right. So, Chapter 5, Sharing the Road. We're going to talk about a lot of different types of vehicles or groups of people that you're going to be sharing the road with. And let's go ahead and get into that now. So, to start with, sharing the road, the driver of a passenger vehicle, and that just simply means when we say passenger vehicle, we mean any vehicle that's designed to carry passengers. So a car, a truck, a van, a bus, anything like that, okay? Driver of a passenger vehicle must share the road with many types of vehicles and pedestrians. We've talked a little bit about pedestrians already and about sharing the road with pedestrians. We're going to talk a little bit more today about that, as well as some other types of vehicles that are different than your regular car, truck, van, SUV, whatever. So pedestrians, I said we were going to talk a little bit more about pedestrians, so let's go ahead and do that. Both drivers and pedestrians are responsible for traffic safety. We've been focusing on the driver portion of that. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the pedestrian portion of that today. But with this being driver education class, we definitely focus on the driver side of things. So a driver, as you know, a driver should always be prepared to yield the right of way and should not drive unnecessarily close to pedestrians. We talked the other day about how the law says you got to leave 3 feet between you and the pedestrians, and that's cutting it a little close, in my opinion. I would prefer to see, 6, 10 feet, something like that between you and a pedestrian. If you are the pedestrian, what are your responsibilities? Well, there's a long list of them in the Rules of the Road book. We're not going to go over all of them because we're focused on the driver's side of things. But I'm going to hit a couple of the really important ones tonight or today. I'm recording this at night, but you'll probably be watching it during the day. Pedestrians must not walk on a roadway unless there is no sidewalk. Did you guys hear that? You're not supposed to walk on the road unless there's no sidewalk. If there is no sidewalk, you should be on the shoulder of the road or the edge of the road. Okay, you should not be on the actual roadway. You should be off to the side. If there's no sidewalk and there's no shoulder, then you're left with no choice but to walk on the road. And when you have to do that, you should walk facing oncoming traffic. So you want to be able to see the cars coming towards you, not have cars coming up behind you that you can't see. And the reason for that should be obvious. If there's a car coming towards you and they're not paying attention and they're not getting over, you've got a chance to dive in the ditch, literally to dive out of the way of the car so that you don't get struck and killed. So that's why it's important for you to walk facing oncoming traffic. Joggers and walkers. I know that this may not apply to very many of you. Maybe later in life it'll apply to you. I myself am a jogger. I go on runs a couple times a week when I can drag myself out of bed in the morning, which hasn't been happening much here lately. On public roads, joggers and walkers should try to select wide roads with good shoulders. So when you're jogging or walking around town, pick wide roads when at all possible. And remember to face oncoming traffic and look and listen for cars. Take some responsibility. If you're jogging or walking in a group, when cars are approaching, you need to transition to single file. It's not okay to just take up the entire road and say, sorry, cars, get out of our way. We're taking control of this roadway. No, you're not allowed to do that. Other safety concerns. As a pedestrian, you must always obey railroad and bridge gates and other barriers. Okay, just like cars have to, you have to as well. It's also illegal, not allowed to hitchhike. You're not allowed to stand on the side of the road and put your thumb out and hope that the person that pulls over to pick you up is not a serial killer. You're not allowed to do that. Okay. Hitchhiking is illegal. Now, there is a difference between hitchhiking, standing out there and thumbing for a road and hoping, thumbing for a ride and hoping some stranger picks you up. There's a difference between that and stopping to help somebody, especially somebody that you know. If you're driving down the road and you see a car with its hood up and its hazard lights on, and you're like, hey, I think that's Mr. Smith over there. It's totally fine for you to stop and see if I need a hand. Okay. We know each other. So that's a big difference. Me as an adult, oftentimes I will stop and offer assistance to someone, even if I don't know them. You as a minor, I would strongly discourage that. We live in an era of cell phones, so people generally have a way of calling for help. If you don't know the person, especially as a minor, I would strongly discourage stopping to talk to a random stranger. But that's a conversation that you should have with your parents. Be extremely watchful when backing in or out of a driveway when children are near. This is, children are falling into the category of pedestrians here. That's why we're talking about it. When you're backing out of a driveway, really watch out for pedestrians. Especially watch out for children if you know they're in the area, because they do unpredictable things and they don't always think about, hey, I shouldn't run behind that car that's backing up because I might get hurt. They don't always think like that. So you really have to watch out for them. Okay, so that's a little bit of information about pedestrians. Now let's transition into another topic, the topic of motorcycles. I'm going to get a little caffeine right now. Okay, so one thing that I want to say is that this class is not designed to help you get your motorcycle license. I don't have anything personally against motorcycles. That's just not what this class is designed for. If you are interested in obtaining your motorcycle license, the first thing you need to do is you need to talk to your parents, because that's a decision that you need to run by them. That's a conversation you need to have with them. The second thing you would need to do is start doing some research and signing up for a safety class, a specific motorcycle safety class. I'm not qualified to teach you that information. I'm not a motorcycle rider myself. I just don't have any knowledge in that area. Okay. But just so you know, because you're going to be sharing the road with people riding motorcycles. And so you need to be aware of this and understand how you, as the driver of a vehicle, should interact with motorcycle riders that are on the roadways. Motorcycle riders have the same rights and responsibilities as other roadway users. We treat them just like other roadway users. Except we're a little extra careful around them in certain situations. And we'll talk about that. Why are we extra careful? Because of their size and vulnerability. Okay, they're small, which makes them a little bit hard to see. So we have to be extra vigilant about looking for them. They're vulnerable. They're vulnerable because they don't have as much protection around them. You and I, when we're in a regular car, we've got doors around us. We've got a roof over our head. We've got these pillars that support the windshield. We've got crumple zones at the front and rear of the car. We've got airbags that deploy if we get in a wreck. We've got a seatbelt that holds us in place. We've got all sorts of protection if we get in a wreck. A motorcycle rider has only what they have on their body. Maybe they're wearing a helmet. Maybe they're wearing protective clothing. Maybe not. So they're pretty vulnerable. They don't have much protecting them. So it's really important for us to be extra careful around them. So we need to pay special attention. The failure of motorists, that's people like you and me, the failure of motorists to detect and recognize motorcycles in traffic is the most common cause of motorcycle crashes. Did you hear that? That means that the people riding motorcycles generally aren't causing their own crash. They're being crashed into by people like you and I that just didn't see them. We weren't being careful enough. More than 50% of all motorcycle crashes occur at intersections. And, at intersections are inherently dangerous. That same statement is true for even non-motorcycle related crashes. More than 50% of all crashes occur at intersections because that's where you have cars crossing paths. So, of course, you are increasing the chance that a crash is going to happen. But it's especially dangerous for motorcycles because, as we said, they don't have as much protection. The most common situation occurs when an oncoming automobile makes a left turn in front of a motorcycle. So you've got a motorcycle at an intersection that's heading straight. You've got a car that's at the intersection wanting to turn left, and they turn right in front of the motorcycle because they don't see the motorcycle. The motorcycle rider does not have time to stop, and there's a collision. And unfortunately, those collisions are also often fatal. These are two teenagers that were killed a few years back in Springfield, Illinois. I know this story personally because the grandfather of Nathan Gully was a dear friend of mine, and he, that's exactly what happened in this situation. These two teenagers were from Central A&M School District, which is over in Assumption and Moweaqua. And they were riding a motorcycle. Nathan was fixing up a car, and he and Isaiah took off, and they rode to Springfield to look for parts at the parts store. And this exact thing happened. They came up to an intersection. An SUV was turning left. They didn't see the motorcycle coming, and both of these teenagers died in that crash. And that's a story that plays out all too often. So it's really important for us as drivers of vehicles to be extra vigilant in our searching for motorcycles. Okay, a little bit of information about motorcycles and lane sharing. So, motorcycles don't take up a lot of room. We just got done talking about how they are smaller than other vehicles, and that makes them hard to see. Well, sometimes you will see a motorcycle and a car sharing a lane. And look at this. You've got a lane of cars, you got another lane of cars, and this motorcycle is sharing the lane with these other cars. That is illegal in Illinois. There are some states where that is legal, and I can't even believe that. That just seems crazy to me. But it's illegal in Illinois. It's also illegal for two motorcycles to share a lane. Now, what's okay is you'll see motorcycles staggered in a lane sometimes. So a motorcycle here and then a motorcycle here, but they should not be next to each other. Now, the reason for this, whether it's a car and a motorcycle or two motorcycles, is that motorcycle needs to have the ability to move right and left in the lane to avoid hazards like potholes or a blown out tire that's in the road or roadkill or whatever the case might be. That motorcycle needs to have the ability to move around in their lane. Another thing that we need to consider when thinking about motorcycles is how close behind them are we going to follow? How close behind that motorcycle? Behind normal cars, we want to leave 2 to 3 seconds. That's our normal following distance. At absolute minimum, 2 seconds. Better is 3 seconds behind another car. And the way you calculate that is when a car passes a fixed point on the road, so a pothole or one of the dashes in the road from the dotted line, or a tree on the side of something that's fixed. When that car passes that, you start counting in your head. 1001, 1002. 1003. You should be able to get to at least 2 before you get to that same spot. If you're behind a motorcycle, you want to make sure that you can get to at least 3 before you get to that same spot. The reason that you increase following distance behind motorcycles is that in general, motorcycles can stop quicker than a car can stop. Now, that all depends on the size of the motorcycle and the road conditions and the skill of the motorcycle rider. But in general, motorcycles can stop faster than cars. So you need to give extra space, because if that motorcycle slams on their brakes, you don't want to run into the back of them. That's really important. Motorcycles can stop in a shorter distance to a car, so you increase following distance to 3 to 4 seconds. Here's a quick little segment of a video of a motorcycle rider that's looking, they're stopping for traffic, and boom, somebody just runs right into the back of them. Now, that's not because the motorcycle stopped faster than the car. That's because the car wasn't paying attention. Okay. But it is an example of this absence of mind, this lack of attention by drivers, not paying close enough attention when around motorcycles. And you can look these videos up on YouTube. There's gobs of them, of motorcycles being hit by cars. Okay, well, until you guys get your license, you might be a bicycle rider. And even after you get your license, you may continue to ride your bicycle for fun or for exercise. And when you're in a car driving, you will definitely be sharing the road with bicyclists. They're going to be out there. They're going to be riding around. So you need to know how to interact with them. Bicyclists have the same rights and responsibilities as other roadway users. What does that mean? That means that when you're out there riding your bicycle, you're supposed to use your turn signals. You're supposed to stop at stop signs. You're supposed to stay in your lane. If you don't, and an accident is caused, you're going to be liable for it. If you're breaking the rules of the road and you cause an accident, you're the one that's going to get a ticket for it. So you need to be aware of that. Not to mention you could get badly hurt, and you certainly don't want that. As a driver of a car, you should give extra room to bicyclists. You should be extra cautious around them. And you should understand that they have a right to be on the road as well. They don't have to move over to the sidewalk. They have a right to be on the road as well. Because they have the same rights and responsibilities as other roadway users, that means that they're required to travel in the same direction as vehicles. I got to tell you, when I'm on a family bike ride, that freaks me out, because I don't like the idea of riding down the road and having a car coming up behind us and I can't see them. I don't like that. That scares me. For more information, there are lots of specific rules on page 43. We're not going to cover them here because we're going to focus on what you do as a driver of a car, but there are a lot more rules about being a bicycle rider on page 43. Another category of vehicles that we're going to be sharing the road with are scooters and mopeds. Now, technically, I'm going to pause this real quick because I just see a typo I got to fix. Okay, we're back. I don't even remember what I was saying. Scooters and mopeds. A moped is a motorized pedicycle is what it stands for, or a motorized bicycle. And they have to have an engine size of 50 cc or less. So it's a small engine. It's not a lot different than a lawnmower engine. You can drive a moped or ride a moped with a regular driver's license, a Class D. If it is greater than 50 cc, but less than 150 cc, it requires a Class L license. That's the small motorcycle license. And if it has an engine size of 150 cc or greater, then you need the full Class M motorcycle license. There we go. So, here's just pictures of what we're talking about here. This is a moped. This is a motorcycle that would fit into the Class L license because it has a small engine. You can see the size difference between this engine and this engine. So this is a Class L motorcycle. This is a Class M motorcycle. Large vehicles are another category of that we're going to be sharing the road with. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about semi-trucks, tractor trailers, big rig, 18-wheeler, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. It's that thing where you got the semi and then it pulls a trailer behind it. Okay. So additionally, that we also have buses like school buses and charter buses. These large vehicles, we have to be extra careful around. So it's really important for us to stay out of their blind spots. That means don't drive next to them. Don't drive behind them. If you're going to pass one, make the pass and get on around them. Don't drive too close behind them. Keep your distance. If you can't see their mirrors, they can't see you. So we got to stay out of their blind spots. We also need to give them extra room at intersections for turning. They take wide turns, whether it's a school bus or a semi or whatever. They have to swing out really wide because of the long wheelbase and because of the way a trailer follows behind a truck. So we have to make sure that we give them lots of room at intersections. Semi-trucks and buses and any of these large vehicles, they are inherently dangerous. That means they're just dangerous by their nature, just by the way they are. This does not mean that drivers of these vehicles are dangerous. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that semi-truck drivers are bad drivers. Quite the contrary. Generally speaking, they're some of the absolute best drivers on the roadway. Same with bus drivers. But the vehicles they are driving have a natural danger to them when compared to the rest of the vehicles. Semi-trucks are big and they weigh a lot, so that makes them dangerous to us driving around in regular cars. Because if a semi-truck and a regular car get in a crash together, the semi-truck's going to fare a lot better than the regular car is. If you're in that regular car, your chances of survival go down because of how big that semi-truck is. So that's something we just need to be aware of. Like we said, semis make wide right turns. So if you see their right turn signal on, don't pull up next to them. You're going to get clipped by the trailer. Okay. Vice versa, or along the same lines, actually not vice versa, but along the same lines. If you're over here on this side of the intersection, if you're over here, don't pull up right to the intersection. Stop farther back. So don't pull up where the red is. Stop back here so that the semi-truck has room to make the turn. Now they can come around, make that turn, and continue on. So it's really important that you recognize the presence of the semi-truck and that you respond appropriately. Don't get in their way. Leave room for them to make the maneuvers that they need to make. Disabled vehicles. If you come across a vehicle that's on the side of the road using its hazard lights, law requires that you move away from the disabled vehicle and slow down, just like you would with a police car or an ambulance or a tow truck or any of those things. Give them room so that you don't hit them and kill them or hurt them. Okay, we've talked about large vehicles, we've talked about motorcycles, we've talked about pedestrians, bicycles, disabled vehicles. We also, this is becoming much more common, is sharing the roads with low-speed vehicles, also known as golf carts, sharing the road with golf carts. We got golf carts driving all over the place these days, and that's okay. All right, that's all right. That's legal. It's a fun little way to travel around. The maximum speed of golf carts is supposed to be 25 miles per hour to be road legal. To be road legal, golf carts have to have brake lights, have to have turn signals, headlights, tail lights, a rear view mirror, safety belts. There's actually more listed on there. For a complete listing, you can see page 46 of your Rules of the Road book. Some of you guys might even have a golf cart at home that your parents have equipped to be road legal so that you can drive it around town. As a driver of a regular car, we just have to watch out for them because just like a motorcycle has less protection, so do these golf carts. So we need to be extra careful around them. Another type of, we were just talking about low speed vehicles. These are also low speed vehicles, but we call them slow moving vehicles. So we give them a little bit of a different name. So slow-moving vehicles, they're typically travel between 5 and 20 miles per hour, although there's a lot of farm equipment now that can go faster than 20 miles per hour. But they are required to have this orange triangle with red bar. This is a special slow-moving vehicle emblem, and it's required to be displayed on the back of the vehicle. What types of vehicles fall into this category? Farm vehicles and animal-drawn vehicles. We don't have a lot of animal-drawn vehicles here, but there are some Amish and Mennonite communities in Illinois and in Missouri, and so you might see these around. And like we said, must have the orange slow-moving vehicle emblem on the rear of the vehicle. When you see one of these, especially if you're coming up behind them, start slowing down early. If you're traveling 55 miles per hour and they're traveling 5 miles per hour, you're going to come up behind them really quickly. So make sure that you allow enough room for you to get slowed down. All right, guys. Hey, that takes us to the end of chapter 5. So thanks for coming along on this journey. I hope you learned something about sharing the road with other vehicles. Hope you enjoyed today's lecture, but even if you didn't, just like my favorite professor, Dr. Phillips, used to say, that's right. It's better than a sharp stick in the eye. We'll see you guys. Good night.